Atlanta, Georgia. Sunday morning, March 2018. The community center on Piedmont Avenue smelled like coffee and old hymnals, sunlight slicing through stained glass windows that hadn't been cleaned in years. Marcus Cole sat in the back row with 5 children pressed against him like puzzle pieces that didn't quite fit anymore. Daniel, 13, arms crossed, jaw set like he was bracing for a punch. Jacob, 10, fingers drumming against his knee in that anxious rhythm Marcus had learned to ignore. Noah, 8, silent as always, eyes tracking everything. Lily, 6, leaning into Marcus's side with her hand, pressed flat against his ribs where she could feel his heartbeat through the fabric. Tommy, 5, holding a toy truck he wasn't supposed to bring, but Marcus had stopped fighting those battles months ago. They were supposed to be at the job fair upstairs. Marcus had seen the flyer taped to the Kroger bulletin board. Atlanta Metro Employment Expo, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., all skill levels welcome. He needed that. Needed it more than air after Hartwell Industries called him into the conference room on Friday afternoon and handed him a severance packet that felt like an apology wrapped in razor wire. 12 years of data analysis, of cleaning messy spreadsheets and finding patterns nobody else could see, of staying late when everyone went home because the work mattered and Marcus didn't know how to do things halfway. None of it had mattered when the quarterly report came back red. But he'd walked into the wrong room, followed the crowd down the wrong hallway into a space that felt more like a church than a hiring hall. Rows of folding chairs facing a makeshift stage where a woman stood behind a microphone with her shoulders pulled back like she was about to deliver a sermon. Martha Brennan. That's what the hand-painted sign beside the podium said. Christian matrimonial settlement facilitated by Martha Brennan, community advocate. She wore a navy dress that probably cost more than Marcus's monthly grocery budget. Her hair pulled into a bun so tight it looked painful. The microphone squealed when she tapped it twice. My daughter is 28 years old. The words came out clipped, matter-of-fact, like she was reading a grocery list. She has a bachelor's degree in nursing from Georgia State. She doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, attends service every Sunday. She can cook, clean, manage a household budget. She's been married before, so she understands commitment. Marcus should have left, should have grabbed his kids and backed out quietly, gone upstairs where men in cheap suits were handing out business cards and promising futures that would probably evaporate by next quarter. But Lily's hand tightened against his ribs and Daniel's breathing changed beside him, got sharper, and Marcus stayed. The catch, Martha continued, adjusting her glasses like she was about to deliver the punchline to a joke nobody wanted to hear, is that my daughter is barren. 4 years of marriage, not a single pregnancy. Medical tests confirmed it. Her womb is closed. But she has steady hands, a good education, and teeth in her head. $20,000 to any man willing to take her as his wife. She won't be a burden. She just needs a roof and a purpose. The crowd didn't gasp, didn't walk out, just shifted in their seats with the kind of uncomfortable silence that meant they'd seen worse, or at least they'd convinced themselves they had. Marcus felt his stomach drop like he'd stepped into an elevator shaft. Lily whispered something he couldn't hear over the blood pounding in his ears. A side door opened. A woman walked out. 28, Martha had said. And Marcus could see it in the way she moved, careful and measured like someone who'd learned to make herself small. Blue dress, sleeves to her wrists, hem below her knees, hair pulled back in a braid that hung between her shoulder blades. Her hands were clenched at her sides, knuckles white, and she didn't look at the crowd, just stared at a spot on the back wall like she could burn a hole through it with sheer willpower. Elena, Martha gestured without looking at her daughter. Come stand where they can see you. What would you do if you watched someone sell their own daughter like property? Walk away? Call the police or do something that might cost you everything you have? Elena walked to the center of the stage, stood there with her chin up and her eyes empty. Marcus had seen that look before 3 years ago in the bathroom mirror. The morning after they'd buried his wife and he'd realized he had 5 kids and a mortgage and no idea how to survive the next 5 minutes, let alone the next 5 years. It was the look of someone who'd stopped expecting rescue. "She can start immediately," Martha said. "No waiting period, no lengthy courtship. This is a practical arrangement for practical people. If you're interested, approach me after the service." The service? Like this was a church function instead of an auction. Marcus felt Daniel tense beside him, felt the question forming before his son spoke it. "Dad." Daniel's voice was low, furious in that teenage way that meant he was seconds from shouting. "Are we really just sitting here?" Marcus didn't answer. Couldn't, because he was doing the math in his head and the numbers weren't adding up to anything good. $20,000. That was the down payment he'd scraped together for the foreclosure lawyer, tucked in a savings account he'd opened the week after the funeral because his wife had made him promise to never let the kids lose the house. The same house where Daniel still had basketball trophies on his shelf, and Jacob had height marks on the kitchen doorframe, and Lily's bedroom walls were painted purple because that had been her mother's favorite color. But nobody in that room knew was that Marcus had just spent his last dollar. That $20,000? It was supposed to save his house from foreclosure, the same house where his 5 kids still had memories of their mother who died 3 years ago. He chose a stranger's dignity over his children's home. People were standing, moving toward Martha like she was handing out free samples at Costco instead of brokering the sale of a human being. An older man in a suit that had gone shiny at the elbows. A woman with 3 children clinging to her skirt, whispering to her husband about needing help with the farm. Marcus watched them gather, watched Elena's face stay carefully blank as they circled. "Marcus." Daniel again, sharper this time. "We need to go." But Marcus was already moving, not toward the exit, toward the stage. His body made the decision before his brain caught up, legs carrying him past the rows of folding chairs while his kids scrambled to follow. He could hear Lily's breathing behind him, that slightly labored wheeze that meant her heart was working too hard, and he should have told her to sit down, should have made her rest, but he kept walking. The crowd parted. Marcus stepped through the gap and stood face to face with Martha Brennan, who looked at him with the kind of clinical assessment she'd probably give a used car. "You're interested?" Her eyebrows lifted. "You have children already?" Marcus didn't look at her, looked at Elena instead, at the way her hands had started shaking even though her face stayed perfectly still. Their eyes met for half a second and Marcus saw something crack behind her careful mask. Not hope. Worse than that. The death of hope. The moment when you stop believing anyone will ever see you as more than the sum of your defects. How do you prove to a 13-year-old boy that you're not trying to replace his dead mother? Especially when you were sold like an object just days ago. Marcus pulled out his wallet, the checkbook he'd been carrying since Friday because he was supposed to meet the lawyer on Monday morning. Supposed to hand over the retainer that would buy him 6 more months in the house his wife had loved. His hands were steady as he wrote the numbers. 20,000, 0 cents. Signed his name in the messy scrawl that hadn't improved since high school. He tore the check free and held it out to Martha. She took it with fingers that trembled slightly, examined it like she was checking for forgery. "You're sure?" Martha's voice had gone soft, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. "She can't give you children. This isn't a purchase." Marcus kept his voice level, didn't let it shake even though every instinct was screaming at him to grab that check back and run. It's her freedom. She can walk away right now or come with me. Her choice. The room went silent. Even the children stopped fidgeting. Martha's mouth opened, closed, opened again like a fish drowning in air. Elena's head turned slowly, her eyes finding Marcus's face with an expression he couldn't read. "Why?" Elena's voice came out hoarse, like she hadn't used it in days. "Because I have 5 kids who just watched a woman get auctioned." Marcus gestured toward where Daniel stood with his siblings clustered behind him like a shield wall. They need to see what dignity looks like, what it costs, and they need to see that some things aren't for sale even when you're desperate. But what Elena didn't say out loud, she had nowhere else to go. Her mother refused to take her back without the money. Her ex-husband had restraining orders against her. The shelter was full. If Marcus told her to leave, she'd be sleeping in her car, but she'd rather die than let this 13-year-old boy see her fear. Martha folded the check with sharp, precise movements and tucked it into her purse. The transaction's complete. She looked at Elena for the first time since the bidding started, and something cold moved behind her eyes. "You're free to go. Don't come back." Elena bent down slowly, picked up a canvas bag that had been sitting beside the stage. Small, worn at the handles, couldn't have weighed more than 10 pounds. Everything she owned in the world, Marcus realized. Everything she'd been allowed to keep. She walked toward Marcus with steps that measured her disbelief. Stopped 3 feet away like she was afraid to get closer, afraid the illusion would shatter. "I don't know you," she said quietly. "I know." Marcus held out his hand, not to take hers, but just to show he wasn't a threat. "But you know what I just did, and you know I won't make you regret it. That's enough for today." Elena looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she looked past him to where 5 children stared with wide eyes and barely contained questions. Her gaze lingered on Lily, on the way the little girl's chest rose and fell with effort, on the medical alert bracelet visible on her thin wrist. "The little one." Elena's voice cracked. "Is she sick?" "Heart defect." Marcus didn't sugarcoat it. "Congenital. She needs surgery eventually, but we're managing for now." Elena's expression shifted, something sharp and professional sliding into place. Her nursing degree, Marcus thought. The thing Martha had listed like an amenity in a real estate ad. "I can help with that," Elena said, "if you want." Marcus nodded once. "We'll talk in the car." They walked out together, Marcus and Elena and 5 shell-shocked children, through the double doors into Atlanta sunlight that felt too bright and too normal for what had just happened. Marcus's Civic was parked in the far corner of the lot, dented bumper held on with duct tape. One headlight cracked from the time Jacob had kicked a soccer ball at the wrong angle. He unlocked it and the kids piled in automatically. Daniel in front, the younger ones in back. Lily claiming her usual spot in the middle where Marcus could see her in the rearview mirror. Elena stood beside the passenger door with her bag clutched to her chest. "Get in," Marcus said, and she did. The drive to Marcus's neighborhood took 23 minutes in Sunday traffic. Nobody spoke. Daniel stared out the window with his jaw clenched. Jacob drummed his fingers against his knees. Noah watched Elena with that unblinking focus he usually reserved for nature documentaries. Tommy hummed tunelessly. Lily's breathing evened out as she relaxed into the familiar rhythm of the car. Elena sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, gaze fixed straight ahead. Marcus caught her looking at the dashboard twice, at the photo tucked into the sun visor. His wife, Elena, smiling at the camera with Lily bundled in her arms 3 days after birth. Daniel had taped it there after the funeral and Marcus hadn't been able to take it down. What Marcus couldn't see was that Elena's ex-husband used to lock her in the basement when she burned dinner. Her own mother told her she was worthless because she couldn't have children. For 4 years she believed them, and now, for the first time in her life, someone thanked her for making a mistake instead of punishing her for it. They pulled up to a house that had been white once, now faded to gray, 2 stories, crooked shutters, lawn that needed mowing. The for sale sign in the yard had a red foreclosure sticker across it that Marcus kept meaning to tear down, but never found the energy. "Home," he said, and killed the engine. The kids scattered the second the doors opened, muscle memory carrying them to their usual spots. Daniel disappeared upstairs. Jacob and Noah vanished into the backyard. Tommy ran inside shouting something about his Lego set. Lily lingered on the porch, one hand pressed to her chest like she was checking to make sure her heart was still beating. Marcus helped Elena out of the car, grabbed her bag from the trunk. It was lighter than it looked. He carried it up the steps and Lily fell into step beside them, her small hand finding Marcus's free one. Inside, the house smelled like cereal and laundry detergent and something vaguely burnt that Marcus had given up trying to identify. The living room was a disaster zone of backpacks and shoes and papers that needed signing. The kitchen sink was full of dishes from yesterday. Marcus set Elena's bag down by the stairs and turned to find her standing frozen in the doorway, eyes tracking over the chaos like she was cataloging evidence. "It's not much," Marcus said. 4 bedrooms. You can have the spare room upstairs, door locks from the inside. I'll bring up some sheets. Elena blinked, focused on him with an effort that suggested she'd been somewhere else entirely. "You don't have to explain. I'm not expecting anything." "Good." Marcus crossed his arms. "Because I'm not offering anything except a place to stay until you figure out what's next. You want to leave tomorrow? You leave. You want to stay a month? You stay. No strings, no expectations, just a roof." "Why?" Elena asked again, and this time there was an edge to it, an anger starting to kindle beneath the shock. "Why spend your money on a stranger? Why bring me here? What do you want?" Marcus looked at her for a long moment, at the way she held herself like she was bracing for a blow, at the bruises on her wrist he'd noticed in the car, faint and yellow-green, old enough to be healing but new enough to tell a story he didn't want to imagine. "I want my kids to know that people are worth more than their utility," he said quietly. "I want them to see that someone's value doesn't decrease because they can't give you what you expected. And I want them to grow up believing that when you have a chance to do the right thing, you do it, even when it costs you everything, especially then." Elena's eyes filled, but she didn't cry, just nodded once, sharp and decisive like she was filing that information away for later analysis. Lily tugged Marcus's hand. "Daddy." Her voice was soft, breathless. "Is she staying?" "For now," Marcus said. "Is that okay?" Lily studied Elena with the kind of solemn assessment only 6-year-olds could pull off. Then she stepped forward and held out a drawing she'd been clutching. Crayon on construction paper, stick figures with oversized heads. "I made this at church," Lily said. "It's our family. Mama's the one with the purple dress because purple was her favorite. That's you in the middle because you're the tallest. That's me with the heart monitor. Those are my brothers." She pointed to each figure in turn. Then she pointed to a blank space at the edge of the paper. "I didn't know if you were coming, so I left room just in case," Lily said. "Do you want to be in the picture?" Elena took the drawing with shaking hands, stared at it like she was holding something sacred. "I don't want to replace anyone," Elena whispered. "You can't replace Mama," Lily said matter-of-factly. "She's gone, but we have room for more people if they're nice. Are you nice? I try to be. Then you can be in the picture." Lily smiled, gap-toothed and guileless. "What's your favorite color?" "Blue." Lily took the drawing back and pulled a crayon from her pocket, drew a careful stick figure in the empty space with a blue dress, handed it back to Elena. "Now you're family," Lily said. "Welcome home." Marcus watched Elena's face crumple and rebuild itself in the space of 3 seconds. Watched her crouch down to Lily's level and say something too quiet for him to hear. Watched Lily throw her arms around Elena's neck with the kind of trust that used to terrify Marcus because the world didn't deserve it. When Elena stood again, her eyes met Marcus's and something passed between them. Not attraction, not gratitude, something harder to name. Recognition, maybe. 2 people who'd both learned that dignity was the only thing you got to keep when everything else got stripped away. Marcus cleared his throat. "I'll show you your room." He led Elena upstairs past Daniel's closed door and the bathroom the boys shared and the tiny bedroom where Tommy still slept with a nightlight. The spare room was at the end of the hall, barely big enough for a twin bed and a dresser. Marcus had been using it for storage until last month when he'd finally admitted the foreclosure was real and started boxing things up. "It's small," he said, setting her bag on the bed, "but it's yours. Lock works. Window opens if you need air. Bathroom's shared, but the boys know to knock." Elena walked to the window, looked out at the backyard where Jacob and Noah were kicking a soccer ball in aimless patterns. Her reflection in the glass showed someone who hadn't slept well in weeks. "I don't have anywhere else to go," she said flatly. "You should know that. If you're expecting gratitude or loyalty or some kind of emotional debt, you should know I have nothing left to give. I'm not expecting anything." "Everyone expects something." Elena turned to face him. "Even when they say they don't." "Especially then." Marcus leaned against the door frame. "My wife died 3 years ago. Breast cancer, stage 4 by the time they caught it. She spent the last 6 months in hospitals and hospice and our bedroom when it got too bad to move. The kids watched her disappear piece by piece. Daniel stopped sleeping. Jacob started lying about everything. Noah stopped talking for 3 months. Lily was 3 and she didn't understand why Mama wouldn't pick her up anymore. Tommy wasn't even born yet when the diagnosis came." He paused, made sure Elena was listening. "I learned something watching her die," Marcus continued. "Learned that the worst thing you can do to a person isn't causing them pain. It's making them believe their pain doesn't matter, making them think they're only worth as much as they can produce or provide or perform. My wife spent her last weeks apologizing for being sick. Apologizing for the medical bills, apologizing for leaving us alone. Like dying of cancer was a personal failing." Elena's expression shifted, softened at the edges. "I swore when she was gone that I'd never make another person feel that way," Marcus said. "Never make someone think their value was conditional. So no, Elena, I don't expect anything from you except basic human decency. And if you can't manage that today, I'll understand, because I've been where you are and I know what it costs just to keep breathing." Elena looked at him for a long time. Then she looked at the room, at the bed with its faded quilt and the dresser with one drawer slightly open, at the window with its view of a backyard that needed weeding and children who needed 1,000 things Marcus couldn't provide alone. "I can cook," she said quietly. "Not well, but I can follow a recipe. I can do laundry. I can help with homework if it's not past 8th grade level. I can monitor medications and take vital signs and recognize warning signs of cardiac distress." She was listing her qualifications like she was applying for a job. Marcus felt something crack in his chest. "Elena," he said gently, "you don't have to earn your keep. You just have to be here. That's it. Nobody's ever said that to me before. Then it's about time someone did." Marcus left her there, closed the door behind him with a soft click, stood in the hallway for a moment with his forehead pressed against the wall and his eyes cleared. $20,000. The foreclosure lawyer. The house. He'd just traded his kids' home for a stranger's freedom, and he had no idea if it was the right call or the biggest mistake he'd ever made. Downstairs, something crashed, Tommy's voice shouting, "I didn't mean to." Marcus took a breath and went to handle it, leaving Elena alone in a room that wasn't hers, in a house that might not be anyone's in 60 days. But what Elena realized while staring at that room, she'd been in worse places, had slept in her car for 3 nights after her ex-husband threw her out, had spent a week on her mother's couch before Martha made it clear she was only welcome if she came with money attached. This room was small and sparse, but it had a lock on the door and a window that opened and a man downstairs who'd just spent $20,000 to prove she mattered. That was more than she'd had this morning. Elena unpacked her bag slowly, methodically. 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, underwear and socks, a toothbrush and a travel-size bottle of shampoo, the photo album she'd managed to save. pictures of grandparents who'd died before the divorce and a sister who'd stopped returning her calls. A nursing textbook from college that she'd never had the heart to sell. At the bottom of the bag, wrapped in a scarf, the divorce papers with decree of dissolution stamped across the top in red ink. She put the papers in the bottom drawer and closed it. Tried not to think about how the decree listed irreconcilable differences when the truth was just one word: barren. Her ex-husband's family had wanted heirs and she'd failed to provide them. Simple as that. Clinical, factual, unforgivable. Elena sat on the edge of the bed and let herself feel it. The weight of the day, the shock of the auction, the strangeness of being in a house full of children who weren't hers with a man who didn't want anything from her except basic human decency. It felt like a trap, felt like the moment before everything went wrong. But Lily's drawing was on the nightstand where Elena had set it. The blue stick figure with careful crayon arms, and maybe that meant something. Maybe that meant she got to stay. Dinner was chaos. Marcus had planned to order pizza but discovered his credit card was maxed and he only had $17 in his wallet until payday on Tuesday. He ended up making spaghetti with jarred sauce while the kids fought over who got to set the table, and Elena hovered in the doorway like she wasn't sure she was allowed to help. "Plates," Marcus said without looking up from the stove. "Cabinet above the dishwasher, forks in the drawer by the fridge." Elena moved like someone defusing a bomb. Slow, careful, counting out 6 plates when she only needed 5, and Marcus didn't correct her. She set the table in silence while Lily narrated a story about a ladybug she'd seen at church, and Tommy argued with Noah about whether dinosaurs could swim. They sat. Marcus served. Daniel took his plate upstairs without a word. The younger boys inhaled their food like they were in a race. Lily picked at hers, eating 3 bites before pushing it away. Elena ate mechanically, eyes down, chewing each bite exactly 20 times like she'd been taught to savor food she couldn't afford to waste. "It's just spaghetti," Marcus said quietly. "You don't have to act grateful." Elena looked up, startled. "I am grateful. I know, but you don't have to perform it." After dinner, Marcus washed dishes while Elena dried, a rhythm they fell into without discussion. The boys scattered to their rooms, Lily curled up on the couch with a book she was pretending to read, eyes tracking the adults instead of the pages. "She needs her medication," Elena said, nodding toward Lily. "Heart patients on digoxin need consistent timing. Has she had her evening dose?" Marcus froze with his hands in the dishwater. "How did you know she's on digoxin?" "I can see the symptoms. Slight peripheral cyanosis, labored breathing on exertion, the medical alert bracelet. It's a common maintenance drug for congenital defects." Elena's voice had gone clinical, professional. "When's her next cardiology appointment?" 6 weeks. Marcus pulled his hands out, dried them on a towel. "The specialist's booked through summer. We're on a cancellation list. Does she have an echo scheduled?" "We can't afford it. Insurance won't cover more than 1 a year and we used it in January." Elena nodded slowly. "I can monitor her at home. Basic vitals, watch for changes. It's not a replacement for proper care, but it's better than nothing." Marcus looked at her, really looked, and saw the nurse she'd been trained to be underneath the woman who'd been auctioned that morning. Competent, calm, necessary. "That would help," he said carefully, "if you're willing." "I'm willing." Lily's medication was in the kitchen cupboard, a row of orange bottles with child-proof caps. Elena read each label twice, checked expiration dates, made notes on a scrap of paper about dosing times and potential interactions. When she was satisfied, she measured out the correct amount and brought it to Lily with a glass of water. "Open wide, sweetheart," Elena said softly. Lily obeyed, swallowing the pills with practiced ease. Elena watched her throat work, counted to 10, nodded. "Good girl, you can go play now." Lily studied Elena with those 2 old eyes. "Are you a doctor?" "A nurse. Or I was. I let my license lapse." "Why?" "Long story. Maybe I'll tell you someday." Lily seemed to accept this. She slid off the couch and padded upstairs, leaving Marcus and Elena alone in the kitchen with the sound of the dishwasher running and the evening news droning from the living room TV. "Thank you," Marcus said. Elena shrugged. "It's basic care. Anyone could do it. But not anyone did. You did. That matters." Elena turned away, started wiping down the counter with sharp, efficient movements. Wiped the same spot 3 times before Marcus gently took the cloth from her hands. "You're allowed to sit down," he said. "You're allowed to rest. You don't have to earn your place here every minute of every day." "I don't know how to do that." "Then learn. Take your time. Figure it out." Elena met his eyes and something raw flashed across her face. Exhaustion, maybe, or relief, or the terrible vulnerability of being seen as human after spending so long as merchandise. Marcus showed her how to work the TV remote, where the extra blankets were kept, which stairs creaked and which doors stuck, gave her the Wi-Fi password and showed her the house rules written on a whiteboard by the fridge. No hitting, no lying. Clean up your own messes, ask before you borrow. Simple. Enforceable. Written in Daniel's careful handwriting 3 years ago, when structure was the only thing keeping them all from falling apart. Bedtime was 8:30 for the younger kids, 9 for Daniel. Marcus did the rounds, checking homework and brushing teeth and answering questions about tomorrow's schedule. He found Lily sitting up in bed with her heart monitor on, the adhesive pad stuck to her chest and the device clipped to her pajama top. "Can't sleep?" Marcus sat on the edge of her bed. "My heart's being loud tonight." Lily pressed her hand to her chest. "It feels like drums." Marcus checked the monitor. Heart rate elevated but not dangerous, rhythm steady. He made a note to mention it to Elena in the morning. "Want me to read to you?" he asked. Lily shook her head. "Can Elena do it?" Marcus hesitated. "She's probably tired, honey. But she's a nurse. She knows about hearts. Maybe she can make it quieter." Marcus went to find Elena. She was in her room with the door cracked, sitting on the bed with the photo album open in her lap. She looked up when he knocked. "Lily wants you to read to her," he said. "You can say no. She'll understand." Elena closed the album carefully. "I'll do it." They walked to Lily's room together. Elena sat where Marcus had been sitting, on the edge of the bed with her hands folded in her lap. Lily handed her a book, The Ugly Duckling, worn soft from repeated readings. Elena opened it and began to read. Her voice was steady, practiced, the voice of someone who'd read to children before. Marcus leaned against the doorframe and listened. Watched the way Lily's eyes tracked the pictures, the way her breathing evened out as the story progressed. When Elena reached the part where the ugly duckling saw his reflection and realized he was a swan, Lily interrupted. "You're not ugly," Lily whispered. "You're just waiting to be a swan." Elena's hands trembled on the pages. She recovered quickly, finished the story, closed the book. Lily was already half asleep, eyes fluttering. "Good night, sweetheart," Elena murmured. "Night, Mama." Lily's voice blurred with exhaustion. "See you tomorrow." Elena went very still. Marcus saw the moment it hit her, saw her shoulders lock and her breathing stop. But she didn't correct Lily, just set the book on the nightstand and stood carefully, like any sudden movement might shatter something fragile. In the hallway she stopped, pressed her back against the wall and covered her mouth with both hands. "She didn't mean it," Elena said through her fingers. "She's confused. I'll tell her tomorrow." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. She had a mother. I'm not trying to replace her." "Nobody thinks you are." Elena lowered her hands, looked at Marcus with eyes that had seen too much and believed too little. "I've been here 6 hours. I can't just step into a dead woman's shoes and pretend that's normal." "You're not stepping into anyone's shoes, you're just being here. That's all she needs, all any of them need." "What if I can't do this? What if I'm not good at it?" "Then you'll learn, same as the rest of us." Elena looked at Lily's door, at the glow of the nightlight spilling into the hall. She looked at Marcus, at the exhaustion written into every line of his face. "Why aren't you angry at me?" she asked suddenly. "You just spent $20,000 you didn't have. You brought a stranger into your house. You're losing your home in 2 months. Why aren't you furious?" "Because anger doesn't change anything." Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. "Because I watched my wife die angry at a disease that didn't care about her feelings. Because my kids have seen enough people lose their tempers, and I won't add to that. And because you're not the enemy here, Elena. The system that made you believe your worth was tied to your fertility. The people who taught you that love was conditional. The circumstances that brought you to that auction. Those are worth being angry at, but you're just trying to survive. Same as me." But what Elena didn't know yet was that Marcus's wife made him promise something on her deathbed. She held his hand and whispered, "Don't let them grow up thinking money fixes everything. Teach them that character is the only thing nobody can take from you." That promise was the reason Marcus said no to $500,000. Elena nodded slowly, wiped her eyes with the heels of her hands. "Thank you for tonight, for the room and the dinner and letting me help with Lily. I know I don't deserve any of it. Everyone deserves basic kindness, you just haven't been getting it." Marcus went to bed alone in the room he used to share with Elena. In the bed that still smelled faintly like her shampoo even though he'd washed the sheets 100 times. He lay in the dark and listened to the house settle, the familiar creaks and groans of wood and pipes and foundation slowly giving way to time. In 2 months, the bank would take it all. In 2 months, his kids would have to pack up their memories and move somewhere smaller, somewhere without Elena's ghost in every corner. But tonight they were here. Tonight they were safe. Tonight a woman who'd been sold like livestock was sleeping in the spare room with a lock on her door and a 6-year-old's drawing on her nightstand. And maybe that meant something. Maybe that meant he'd done the right thing. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to believe it. Upstairs, Elena lay awake in a twin bed in a stranger's house and listened to the sounds of a family breathing. Heard Jacob mumbling in his sleep through the thin walls, heard Tommy's footsteps padding to the bathroom, heard Lily's heart monitor beeping softly 3 doors down. Outside, Atlanta traffic hummed and distant sirens wailed and the world kept turning like nothing extraordinary had happened. But something had. Elena knew it in her bones even if she couldn't name it yet. Something had shifted. Someone had looked at her broken pieces and said, "You're worth more than this," and put his money where his mouth was. Someone had made a choice that cost him everything and asked for nothing in return, except that she try. Elena pulled Lily's drawing out from under her pillow where she'd hidden it. Studied the blue stick figure with its careful crayon smile. "Now you're family," Lily had said. "Welcome home." Elena didn't cry, couldn't afford to, but she folded the drawing and pressed it against her chest and let herself imagine, just for a moment, what it might feel like to belong somewhere. To be chosen not despite her flaws, but simply because a little girl with a broken heart had decided there was room in the picture. Tomorrow would bring new complications. Daniel's suspicion, Marcus's financial crisis, the reality of 5 children who needed more than Elena knew how to give. Tomorrow she'd have to figure out how to live in a house that wasn't hers with people who weren't hers while pretending she deserved to be there. But tonight, Elena thought. Tonight she could rest. She closed her eyes and slept dreamlessly for the first time in 4 years. The drawing clutched in her hands and the sound of Lily's heart monitor beating steady through the walls like a promise that some broken things still worked if you were careful enough, if you tried hard enough, if someone believed in you even when you'd stopped believing in yourself. Monday morning arrived with the weight of consequence. Marcus woke to his phone buzzing on the nightstand, a number he didn't recognize flashing across the screen. He answered it in the dark, voice rough from too little sleep. Mr. Cole, this is Gerald Winters from Hartwell Industries Human Resources. We need you to come in this morning to finalize your separation paperwork. 9 a.m. sharp. Marcus checked the time. 6:15. That meant 90 minutes to get the kids fed and out the door and himself presentable enough to sign away 12 years of his career with dignity intact. I'll be there. He showered in 4 minutes, shaved by feel because the bathroom mirror had a crack running through it that distorted everything. Dressed in the same khakis and button-down he'd worn to every performance review, every quarterly meeting, every conversation where his competence was measured against metrics that never quite captured what he brought to the table. Downstairs he found Elena already in the kitchen, hair pulled back, wearing jeans and one of the shirts from her sparse wardrobe. She'd found the coffee maker and figured out how to work it, 2 mugs waiting on the counter. Thought you might need this. Elena pushed one toward him. Marcus took it, surprised. You didn't have to. I know, but I was awake anyway. The coffee was strong, bitter, exactly how he liked it. Marcus leaned against the counter and tried not to calculate how much he'd just lost. 20,000 from savings meant the foreclosure lawyer was off the table. Meant the bank would move forward with seizure proceedings. Meant he had maybe 60 days before they had to be out, had to pack up everything Elena had touched and move somewhere cheaper. Somewhere without memories embedded in the floorboards. Bad news? Elena watched him with careful eyes. Just work, finalizing my severance. Marcus drained half the mug. I'll be back by noon. Kids need to catch the bus at 7:40. Lily's morning meds are in the cupboard, same dosage as last night. Daniel will fight you on breakfast. Jacob will lie about brushing his teeth. Noah won't talk. Tommy will want chocolate milk, which we don't have. I'll manage. If you can't, call me. Marcus scribbled his number on the whiteboard. Don't let Lily overexert herself. If her lips start turning blue or she seems unusually tired, that's an emergency. Elena nodded once, committing it to memory. Go. I've got this. Marcus wanted to believe her. Wanted to trust that a woman he'd known for less than 24 hours could handle his children without disaster. But Daniel thundered down the stairs at that moment, backpack slung over one shoulder, and the look he gave Elena could have frozen water. Where's Dad? Right here. Marcus straightened. Get breakfast. Bus comes in 20 minutes. Daniel grabbed a granola bar from the pantry without acknowledging Elena's presence. Jacob appeared next, then Noah, then Tommy dragging his toy truck. They moved around Elena like she was furniture, familiar with the choreography of mornings but unwilling to adjust their patterns for a stranger. Lily came down last, heart monitor clipped to her shirt, breathing slightly labored from the stairs. She went straight to Elena and held up the medication bottle. Is it time? Elena checked her watch. Yes, let me get you water. While Elena measured out pills, Marcus corralled the boys toward the door. Daniel pushed past without a word. Jacob mumbled something that might have been goodbye. Noah glanced back once, expression unreadable. Tommy waved his truck at Marcus and bolted after his brothers. Have you ever been so broke that choosing between your child's medicine and next month's rent felt like choosing which kid gets to eat? That's where Marcus was, and the only person who could help him was the woman he'd just saved from being sold. The bus rumbled to a stop at the corner. Marcus watched through the window as his kids climbed aboard, watched Daniel choose a seat as far from his siblings as possible, watched the vehicle pull away, carrying pieces of his heart he couldn't protect anymore. Behind him, Elena cleaned up the breakfast dishes in silence. Lily sat at the table coloring, her breathing gradually evening out as the medication took effect. Marcus grabbed his keys. I have to go. We'll be fine. Elena didn't look up from the sink. Do what you need to do. Hartwell Industries occupied 3 floors of a glass tower in Midtown, the kind of building where the lobby had waterfalls and expensive art nobody looked at twice. Marcus had walked through those doors every weekday for 12 years, had earned his security badge and his ergonomic chair and his annual cost of living raises that never quite kept pace with inflation. Now he rode the elevator to the third floor with a visitor pass, clipped to his collar and a manila envelope in his hands. Gerald Winters met him in a conference room that smelled like lemon polish and regret. Mid-50s, gray suit, the kind of bland professional face that delivered bad news without flinching. "We appreciate your service to Hartwell, Mr. Cole. The company is restructuring and your position was deemed redundant. You'll receive 6 weeks of severance pay, continuation of health benefits through the end of the quarter, and a positive reference for future employment." Marcus signed where they told him to sign, initialed where they wanted initials, handed over his security badge and his keys to the supply closet and the ergonomic chair that had taken 3 months to get approved. "Is that everything?" Winters shuffled papers into a neat stack. "Just one question." Marcus kept his voice level. "The algorithm I developed for the Q3 revenue projections, the one that identified the Patterson account discrepancies. Who's taking over that work?" Winters hesitated. "That's proprietary information. I spent 18 months building that system. I'd like to know it's in good hands. Your concerns are noted." Winters stood, extending his hand. "Best of luck in your future endeavors." Marcus shook it because refusing would accomplish nothing. Walked out of the conference room, out of the building, into Atlanta sunlight that felt too bright for a funeral. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Saw you at Hartwell. Let's talk. Important. Victor Kane." Marcus deleted it without responding. He'd heard the name before, rival CEO who'd been circling Hartwell like a shark for years. Whatever Kane wanted, it wasn't Marcus's problem anymore. The drive home took 30 minutes because he couldn't bring himself to rush, couldn't face the house where Elena was probably drowning in the chaos of 3 boys homesick. Or Lily having a crisis, or Daniel finally saying all the things he'd been holding back. But when Marcus pulled into the driveway, everything looked quiet, normal. The door was unlocked. Inside, he found Noah and Jacob in the living room building something elaborate with Legos. Tommy was asleep on the couch, thumb in his mouth. Lily sat at the kitchen table with Elena, working through a math worksheet while Elena prepared lunch. Sandwiches cut into triangles, crusts removed the way Lily liked. "You're back early." Elena glanced up. "How did it go?" "It went." Marcus set his envelope on the counter. "Where's Daniel?" "Upstairs, homework. He came home? Got off the bus with the others, didn't say much, but he's here." Marcus felt something unclench in his chest. He'd been half expecting to find the house empty. Elena gone. The kids scattered to friends' houses because she'd given up after 2 hours alone with them. "Any problems?" "Tommy threw up after breakfast, but I cleaned it up. Jacob tried to convince me he doesn't have to do his reading log. Noah showed me his rock collection. Lily's vitals are stable, no concerning changes." Elena recited it like a status report. "Daniel slammed his door when I asked if he wanted lunch, but I left a sandwich outside his room." Marcus looked at the kitchen. Clean counters, dishes drying in the rack, floor swept. The chaos he'd left behind had been organized into something manageable. "You didn't have to do all this. I had time." Elena finished the last sandwich, wrapped it in plastic. "Besides, I needed to feel useful." "You are useful." Marcus pulled out a chair, suddenly exhausted. "More than you know." They ate lunch in fragments, Elena feeding the younger kids while Marcus checked on Daniel. Found his oldest son sprawled on his bed with headphones on, the sandwich untouched on the floor outside the door. Marcus picked it up, knocked once, didn't wait for permission before entering. Daniel pulled off the headphones. "What?" "Just checking on you." "I'm fine. The sandwich says otherwise. I'm not hungry." Marcus set it on the nightstand. "Eat it when you are." He turned to leave, but Daniel's voice stopped him. "Dad, how bad is it?" Marcus turned back. "What do you mean?" "The money. The house. I'm 13, not stupid. You gave away $20,000 yesterday." That was the foreclosure fund, wasn't it? Daniel's jaw worked. So we're losing the house. Probably. Because you bought a stranger. Because I couldn't watch someone get sold and do nothing. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed. Because I needed you and your siblings to see that some things matter more than keeping a roof over our heads. Easy to say when you're not the one losing your room. Daniel's voice cracked. This is Mom's house. She picked out the paint colors and planted the garden and put up the curtain rods. Every inch of this place has her in it. And you're just letting it go. I'm not letting anything go. I'm being forced out because life doesn't care about what we want to keep. Marcus kept his voice gentle. Your mother would understand. She'd probably have done the same thing. You don't know that. I do. Because I watched her give away everything she had trying to help people who couldn't help themselves. She volunteered at the free clinic when she was too sick to stand. She gave her last $50 to a woman at the grocery store who couldn't afford formula. She taught me that your worth isn't measured by what you keep, but by what you're willing to sacrifice for what's right. Daniel stared at the ceiling, throat working. That doesn't make losing the house easier. No, it doesn't, but it means we lose it with our integrity intact. Daniel didn't respond. Marcus left the sandwich and closed the door behind him, left his son alone with grief too big for 13 years to hold. Downstairs, Elena had gotten Tommy down for a nap and set the younger boys up with an art project. Lily was reading on the couch, heart monitor beeping softly. The house felt balanced in a way it hadn't since Elena died. Marcus found Elena folding laundry in the utility room off the kitchen. She worked with mechanical precision, each shirt smoothed flat and creased just so. You're good at this. Marcus leaned in the doorway. Better than me. Practice. Elena didn't look up. I ran a household for 4 years. My ex-husband was particular about how things should be done. The way she said particular made Marcus's jaw tighten. He didn't push. They worked in silence for a while, Elena folding and Marcus putting away until the dryer buzzed and she pulled out another load. In the middle of shaking out one of Jacob's t-shirts, she stopped, stared at the fabric like it had personally offended her. What's wrong? Elena held up the shirt. There was a stain on the front, faded but visible. I can't get it out. I've tried 3 different methods and it won't budge. It's fine. Jacob won't care. But I care. Elena's hands were shaking. I should be able to do this. It's basic laundry. If I can't even get a stain out, what good am I? Marcus took the shirt from her gently. It's grass. From when he slid into second base last month, it's been through the wash a dozen times. You're not failing, Elena. The stain is just stubborn. What Marcus couldn't see was that Elena had been eating 1 meal a day for 6 months to save that money. She walked 4 miles to work instead of taking the bus. She wore the same 2 outfits on rotation. Because the only thing worse than being sold was staying bought. Elena pressed her hands flat against the washing machine, shoulders rigid. I need to contribute. I need to be worth the space I'm taking up. You contributed by keeping my kids safe today. By making sure Lily took her medication and Tommy got cleaned up and the house didn't burn down. That's worth more than any stain removal. That's not enough. It is for today. Marcus folded the shirt, stain and all, and added it to Jacob's pile. Tomorrow you can be worth more if you want, but today this is plenty. Elena's breathing slowly evened out. She picked up another piece of laundry and went back to folding, movements still precise but less frantic. They finished the rest in silence. Marcus showed her where the boys kept their clothes, where Lily's dresser was, how to sort socks that had lost their mates into the orphan basket. Domestic intimacy, mundane and necessary, the kind of partnership that developed between people who shared space and responsibilities without romance complicating the equation. Tuesday came with rain, gray skies that turned the morning dim. Marcus woke to the sound of water drumming against the roof and the knowledge that he had $37 in his checking account until Friday's paycheck that wasn't coming anymore. Unemployment wouldn't kick in for weeks. The mortgage was due in 9 days. He'd been doing the math all night and the numbers never added up to survival. Elena was already awake when he came downstairs, sitting at the kitchen table with a laptop Marcus didn't recognize. Borrowed it from the library yesterday while you were with Daniel. Elena didn't look up from the screen. I'm looking for work. You don't have to rush into anything. Yes, I do. Rent's due soon and I need to start paying my way. Marcus poured coffee, studied her profile in the gray morning light. What kind of work are you looking for? Anything. Admin, clerical, customer service. My nursing license lapsed 2 years ago, so medical work is out, unless I want to recertify. Why did it lapse? Elena's fingers paused on the keyboard. My ex-husband said nurses worked too many hours, made it hard for me to keep the house running the way he wanted. So I let it go. Marcus felt anger kindle low in his gut. Did he make you quit? He suggested it strongly. Elena's voice stayed flat, and I was too tired to fight him on everything, so I picked my battles. That one I lost. You could recertify now, if you wanted. With what money? The exam fees alone are $500. Then there's the continuing education credits, the background check, the license renewal. I'd need at least $2,000 to get everything current. Marcus set down his coffee. If I had it, I'd give it to you. I know. That's why I'm not asking. Elena closed the laptop. I'll find something. Even if it's just part-time cashier work, it's a start. The kids came down in stages. Daniel first, grabbing breakfast and leaving before Marcus could say good morning. Jacob and Noah arguing about whose turn it was to sit by the window on the bus, Tommy clinging to Marcus's leg and refusing to put on shoes. Lily moving slow, her breathing labored enough that Marcus made a note to watch her closely. Elena measured out Lily's medication without being asked. Handed Marcus the lunch bag she'd packed the night before. Reminded Jacob about his library book, small gestures that added up to competence, to someone paying attention, to the scaffolding of care that kept a household running. The bus came. The kids left. Marcus and Elena stood in the kitchen with rain pattering against the windows and the weight of the day ahead pressing down. I need to make some calls. Marcus pulled out his phone. See if any of my contacts are hiring. Network a little. Grovel if I have to. I'll be here if you need anything. Marcus went upstairs to make the calls in private. Started with colleagues from Hartwell who might have connections, then branched out to former clients, people he'd helped over the years who owed him favors. Most calls went to voicemail. The ones that didn't ended with vague promises to keep an ear out, to let him know if anything came up, to definitely stay in touch. By noon, he'd left 23 messages and gotten 2 callbacks, both saying the same thing. Budget freezes, hiring holds, maybe in the next quarter. Marcus sat on his bed with his phone in his hands and let himself feel the despair for exactly 3 minutes. Then he got up and went back downstairs where Elena was scrubbing the kitchen floor on her hands and knees even though it didn't need it. Any luck? She sat back on her heels. Not yet. Marcus helped her up. You don't have to clean. The floor was fine. I need to stay busy. Elena rinsed out the sponge with sharp, angry movements. If I stop moving, I'll start thinking, and I can't afford that right now. What would you be thinking about? How I'm 28 and everything I own fits in one bag? How my mother sold me like livestock and I let it happen? How I'm living in a stranger's house with his children calling me mama when I don't deserve the title? Elena's voice stayed level, but her hands betrayed her, shaking as she wrung out the sponge. How I can't even get a job because my last employer was my ex-husband's cousin and she'll tell anyone who calls that I was unreliable and difficult. Marcus took the sponge from her. Sit down. I don't want to sit. Sit anyway. Elena sank into a chair, hands clenched in her lap. Marcus sat across from her. You're not living on charity. You're providing childcare and household management and medical oversight for a sick child. If I was paying someone to do what you're doing, it would cost me 3 times what I'm spending on groceries to feed you. You're not a burden. You're an asset. That's not how it feels. Feelings aren't facts. The fact is you kept 5 kids alive and fed and safe while I was falling apart yesterday. The fact is Lily trusts you enough to let you administer her medication. The fact is this house runs smoother with you in it than it has in 3 years. Those are measurable, provable facts. Elena looked at him with eyes that wanted to believe but didn't know how. What if I mess up? What if I do something wrong and Lily gets hurt, or the boys hate me, or I can't find work and I become dead weight? Then we'll deal with it together. Marcus leaned forward. But sitting here catastrophizing doesn't help anyone. If you need to work, work. If you need to rest, rest, but stop trying to earn your existence. You have value just by being here. The rain picked up, drumming harder against the windows. Outside, Atlanta was a gray blur of weather and traffic, and people going about their lives unaware that Marcus's world was contracting to the space between paychecks and eviction notices. His phone rang. Unknown number. Marcus almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Mr. Cole, this is Victor Kane. We met briefly at a conference 2 years ago. I believe we have mutual interest to discuss." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I'm not interested in whatever you're selling." "I'm not selling anything. I'm offering an opportunity." Kane's voice was smooth, practiced. "I know Hartwell let you go. I know you developed the algorithm they're currently using to hide revenue discrepancies. And I know you have 5 children and a mortgage you can't pay." Marcus felt ice slide down his spine. "How do you know that?" "I make it my business to know things." Kane paused for effect. "I'm prepared to offer you $500,000 to testify in my lawsuit against Hartwell. All you have to do is confirm that the algorithm you created proves they've been cooking their books." "I can't do that. Can't or won't?" "Won't." Marcus kept his voice steady. "I don't know what they're doing with my work now. I've been gone 2 days. Any testimony I'd give would be speculation, not fact. I have the server logs. I have the documentation. I just need you to verify the methodology." Kane's tone shifted, became almost sympathetic. "Think about your children, Mr. Cole. Think about what that money could do. Medical care for your daughter, college funds, a house that isn't being foreclosed on." Marcus looked at Elena, at the woman sitting across from him who'd been sold for $20,000 and was trying to rebuild value from scratch. Looked at the kitchen where Elena used to make pancakes on Sunday mornings, where his kids had lost teeth and learned to tie shoes and grown up believing their father was someone worth trusting. When is a man truly broken? When he loses his job, his house, or when he can't protect the people he loves? And what does it take for a woman who's been sold to tell that man he's enough? "I have dignity. I deserve respect." Marcus heard the words come out of his mouth with a clarity that surprised him. "The answer is no." "You're choosing pride over your child's life?" "I'm choosing truth. There's a difference." Marcus ended the call. Elena stared at him. "How much did he offer?" $500,000. "And you said no." "I said no." "Why?" "Because my kids are watching me. Because someday they'll have to make hard choices and I want them to remember that their father chose character over cash. Because my wife made me promise to teach them that integrity is the only thing nobody can take from you." Marcus set his phone on the table. "And because if I lied for money, I'd be proving your mother right. I'd be proving that everyone has a price and it's just a matter of finding the right number." Elena's eyes filled. She blinked hard, didn't let the tears fall. "You could have taken it. You could have lied and I never would have known. But I would have known. And so would you, eventually." Marcus stood. "I need to keep making calls, see if anyone legitimate is hiring." He went back upstairs, left Elena in the kitchen with her borrowed laptop and her job applications and the weight of watching someone choose poverty over compromise. The afternoon dragged. Marcus made more calls, sent out resumes, filled out applications for positions he was overqualified for and would probably never hear back from. By 3 o'clock, his phone was at 12% battery and he had nothing to show for 6 hours of effort except a growing sense that the bottom was falling out faster than he could catch it. The kids came home. Daniel disappeared upstairs immediately. Jacob and Noah fought over the TV remote. Tommy wanted a snack they didn't have. Lily sat on the couch looking pale, her breathing shallow. Elena took vitals without being asked. Pulse elevated, oxygen saturation slightly low. She gave Marcus a look that said, "Monitor this." "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" Marcus sat beside Lily. "Tired. My chest hurts a little. Does it hurt when you breathe or all the time? Just when I move too much?" Marcus made a mental note to call the cardiologist in the morning, get them on the cancellation list for an earlier echo. If Lily's condition was deteriorating, they needed to know sooner rather than later. Dinner was scrambled eggs and toast because it was cheap and filling, and Marcus was down to his last $20 until unemployment kicked in. The kids ate without complaint. Elena served everyone else before making a plate for herself, portions smaller than anyone else's. Marcus noticed but didn't comment, just slid 2 pieces of bacon onto her plate when she wasn't looking. After dinner, Daniel emerged from his room long enough to corner Marcus in the hallway. "I heard you on the phone earlier. Someone offered you money." Marcus didn't lie. "Yes. How much?" "A lot. And you said no." "I said no." Daniel's face worked through several emotions before settling on anger. "We're about to lose the house and you turned down money? Are you insane? The money came with conditions I couldn't meet." "What conditions?" "Lying under oath, testifying to things I can't prove, selling my integrity for a paycheck." Daniel's laugh was bitter. "Integrity doesn't keep the lights on, Dad." "No, but it keeps me able to look you in the eye." Marcus kept his voice level. "I won't teach you that lying is acceptable as long as the price is right. I won't show you that principles are negotiable when things get hard. And I won't let you grow up thinking your father chose comfort over character. You chose to be broke. I chose to be honest, and I'll make that choice every time, even if it costs us everything." Daniel turned away, shoulders tight. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe, but I'll regret it with my self-respect intact." Marcus went to bed that night with $37 in the bank and no prospects on the horizon. Lay in the dark and listened to his kids sleeping, to the house settling, to the rain that had finally stopped, leaving the world scrubbed clean and temporary. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Offer stands if you change your mind." Vika Marcus deleted it and closed his eyes. Wednesday morning, Elena was gone. Marcus came downstairs at 6 to find her room empty. Bed made with hospital corners, borrowed laptop returned to the table with a note underneath. Went to look for work in person. Back by bus time. E. He made coffee alone, got the kids up alone, managed the morning chaos with Lily's medication and Tommy's meltdown over mismatched socks and Daniel's sullen silence. The house felt different without Elena, unbalanced. Like a 3-legged table he'd been using so long he'd forgotten it was missing a support. The kids caught the bus. Marcus cleaned up breakfast and tried not to worry about where Elena had gone or whether she'd come back. Tried not to calculate how much he'd already come to depend on her presence after less than a week. His phone rang at 9:15. A number he didn't recognize, but the area code was local. "Mr. Cole? This is Amanda Hayes from Second Chance Women's Foundation. Elena Brennan listed you as a reference for our intake coordinator position. Do you have a moment to discuss her qualifications?" Marcus's mind went blank. Elena had applied somewhere using him as a reference without asking. He recovered quickly. "Yes, I can talk. How long have you known Ms. Brennan?" "Almost a week." Marcus decided honesty was the only option. She's been living with my family, providing childcare and household management. Before that, I knew of her situation through community connections. Community connections? Her family was trying to arrange a marriage. I intervened. She needed a safe place to stay and I had space. It's been mutually beneficial. There was a pause. I see. And in the time you've known her, how would you characterize her work ethic? Marcus looked around the clean kitchen, the folded laundry, the medication schedule Elena had written out in careful block letters and taped to the refrigerator. She's the most competent person I've met in years. She anticipated needs before I voiced them. She managed a complex household with medical considerations and didn't miss a single detail. She has nursing training and used it to monitor my daughter's heart condition. And she did all of this while dealing with her own trauma and displacement without once complaining or asking for special treatment. That's quite an endorsement. It's the truth. Marcus paused. If you hire her, you'll be getting someone who understands what it means to rebuild from nothing. Someone who knows the value of second chances because she's living one, and someone who won't take the opportunity for granted. Thank you, Mr. Cole. We'll be in touch with Miss Brennan shortly. The call ended. Marcus stared at his phone and wondered if he'd just helped Elena find a way out, wondered if she'd take a job and move into her own place and disappear from their lives as quickly as she'd entered them. The thought made his chest tight in a way he didn't want to examine. Elena came home at 2:30 just as the bus pulled up. She walked up the driveway with her shoulders back and her chin up, carrying herself differently than she had on Sunday. The kids piled off the bus and Tommy immediately latched onto her leg. "We missed you." Tommy's voice was muffled against her jeans. "I was only gone a few hours." Elena ruffled his hair. "Did you have a good day?" Jacob showed me his spelling test, got an A- and wanted Elena to see before Marcus. Noah handed her a drawing of what might have been a dinosaur. Lily grabbed her hand and squeezed once, said nothing, but the gesture spoke volumes. Daniel walked past without acknowledging her. Elena watched him go with something sad in her eyes. Inside, Marcus made afternoon snacks while Elena checked Lily's vitals. Pulse still elevated but stable, oxygen saturation holding at 94%. Elena made notes on the chart she'd started, tracking patterns with the precision of someone who'd been trained to spot trouble before it became crisis. "I got a call from Second Chance Women's Foundation." Marcus handed her an apple. "You used me as a reference. I hope that's okay. You were the only local contact I had. It's fine." "What did you tell them you were applying for?" "Intake coordinator. It's part administrative work, part crisis counseling, helping women who are leaving difficult situations navigate resources and rebuild." Elena met his eyes. "Seemed appropriate. They called me, asked about your work ethic. What did you say?" "The truth. That you're competent and reliable and exactly what they're looking for." Elena's expression softened. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You might get the job and realize you don't want it." "I want it." Elena's voice was firm. "I need it. I can't keep living here without contributing financially." "It's not right. You're contributing plenty. Not enough." Elena turned away. "I need to be able to support myself. Need to prove I can stand on my own." Marcus understood that. Understood the drive to rebuild self-worth through independence, through proving you could survive without rescue. He'd felt the same thing after Alana died, the desperate need to show himself and his kids that he could handle everything alone even when he couldn't. The week crawled forward. Thursday, Elena got a call back from Second Chance. Came home from the interview with carefully controlled excitement. Friday, the offer came through. $32,000 a year, health benefits after 90 days, start date in 2 weeks. She accepted immediately. Saturday morning, Marcus woke to find Daniel in the kitchen at 6 a.m., making pancakes with a level of concentration that suggested this wasn't about breakfast. You're up early. Marcus poured coffee. Couldn't sleep. Daniel flipped a pancake with more force than necessary. Been thinking about what you said, about integrity and choices and all that. And I still think you're making a mistake turning down money. Daniel's jaw worked. But I get why you did it. Doesn't mean I agree, just means I understand. Marcus leaned against the counter. That's fair. Mom would have been proud of you. Daniel didn't look up from the griddle. She always said you were too stubborn to compromise even when you should. Drove her crazy sometimes, but she loved that about you. Marcus felt his throat tighten. She mentioned that a lot? Near the end, yeah. When things got bad and the bills kept coming and people kept telling us to try experimental treatments or clinical trials or whatever. She said you never once suggested she do something just because it might save money. Never made her feel like her illness was a financial burden. She said that was the greatest gift you gave her. The pancakes were starting to burn. Marcus reached over and lowered the heat. I miss her. Daniel's voice cracked. I miss her so much it feels like I can't breathe sometimes. And I hate that Elena's here because it feels like we're replacing Mom. But I also hate that I need Elena here because she makes things easier and that makes me feel guilty. Marcus pulled his son into a hug. Daniel resisted for 3 seconds, then collapsed into it, 13 years old and carrying grief too heavy for his frame. You're not replacing your mother by accepting help. Marcus spoke into Daniel's hair. And Elena's not trying to take her place, she's just trying to survive same as us. There's room for both things to be true. They ate burnt pancakes together, just the two of them, while the rest of the house slept. By the time Elena came downstairs, Daniel had cleaned up the kitchen and disappeared to his room, but he'd left her a plate warming in the oven with a note. Thanks for helping with Lily. Elena stared at the note like it was written in gold, progress. Marcus handed her coffee, small but real. The first week of Elena's new job passed in a blur. She left at 7:30 each morning, came home by 5, spent evenings helping with homework and monitoring Lily's declining oxygen saturation levels that were starting to worry Marcus more than he wanted to admit. The paycheck wouldn't hit for 2 weeks, but knowing it was coming changed something in Elena's posture, gave her back a piece of self-determination she'd been missing. Marcus's unemployment finally kicked in. $800 a week that would cover groceries and utilities, but nowhere near the mortgage. The foreclosure notice came on a Tuesday, certified mail with 30 days to vacate. He read it twice, folded it, put it in the drawer with all the other bills he couldn't pay. That night, after the kids were asleep, Elena found him on the back porch with a beer he wasn't drinking. Bad news? She sat beside him. Eviction notice, 30 days. I'm sorry, it was coming. Just makes it real. Marcus set the beer down. I need to start looking for apartments. Somewhere that takes 5 kids and doesn't require first and last month's rent I don't have. Elena was quiet for a moment. I get my first paycheck in 2 weeks. You can have it. No, Marcus, you gave me $20,000 when you had nothing. Let me give you 2 weeks of work when I have something. It's different. How? Because I chose to spend that money. Elena's voice went hard. You didn't choose to lose your job or your house. You didn't choose any of this. But I can choose to help and you can choose to let me. Marcus looked at her, at the woman who'd been sold less than 2 weeks ago and was already fighting to pay her debts. Pride. That's what Cain had accused him of. Choosing pride over practicality. Maybe he was right. If you get behind on your own bills because you helped me, the deal's off. Deal. Elena held out her hand. Marcus shook it, felt the calluses on her palm from scrubbing floors and folding laundry and doing 1,000 small tasks that kept his household running. Felt the strength in her grip, the determination of someone who decided survival wasn't enough anymore. They sat in silence watching Atlanta's skyline glow against the night. Somewhere out there, Victor Kane was building his case against Hartwell. Somewhere Martha Brennan was probably telling anyone who'd listen about the daughter she'd sold and the man who'd been fool enough to buy her freedom. Somewhere Alana's memory lived in the purple walls of Lily's bedroom and the height marks on the kitchen doorframe and the promises Marcus had made about teaching his kids that character mattered more than comfort. Elena broke the silence first. That man on the phone last week, the one who offered you money. What did he want you to lie about? The algorithm I built. Marcus explained briefly the revenue tracking system, the discrepancies he'd found, the way Hartwell had probably been using his work to hide financial malfeasance. He testified honestly he'd have to admit he didn't know what they'd done after he left. He testified the way Kane wanted he'd be claiming knowledge he didn't have. So you'd be guessing, at best. At worst, I'd be making things up to fit Kane's narrative. Elena nodded slowly. My ex-husband used to do that, tell half-truths that sounded like facts. By the time I realized he was lying, it was too late to call him on it without starting a fight I couldn't win. Is that why you stayed as long as you did? Part of it. Elena pulled her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. Mostly I stayed because I didn't think I had anywhere else to go. My mother made it clear I was only welcome if I was married and useful. My friends stopped calling after the divorce. The church sided with his family because they tithed more. I convinced myself that being alone would be worse than being with someone who hurt me. What changed? He started making comments about selling me. First as jokes, then as suggestions, then as plans. Elena's voice stayed level. When my mother showed up with the contract and he didn't object, I knew it was over. But by then I'd lost so much time believing I deserved what I got. Marcus didn't touch her, but he wanted to. Wanted to offer some physical comfort that said you didn't deserve any of it. Instead, he just sat close enough that their shoulders almost brushed. You're doing better now. I'm surviving now. There's a difference. Elena rested her chin on her knees. But surviving's better than what I was doing before. And working's better than waiting. And being here with people who see me as human is better than being treated like defective merchandise. You were never defective. Tell that to everyone who walked past me at that auction. They were wrong, all of them. Marcus finally reached over, covered her hand briefly with his. And anyone who made you believe your value was tied to your fertility was lying to you. Elena's fingers tightened under his for just a second. Then she pulled away, stood up, brushed off her jeans. I should sleep. Early morning tomorrow. Elena, she paused. Thank you. For offering to help with rent, for not leaving when things got hard, for being here. Where else would I go? Elena's smile was small but real. This is the first place that's felt like home in 4 years. I'm not giving that up without a fight. She went inside. Marcus stayed on the porch with his untouched beer and the eviction notice burning a hole in his pocket and the strange, unfamiliar feeling that maybe they'd make it through this after all. Maybe not intact, maybe not unscathed, but together, whatever that meant. The call came on a Thursday morning 3 weeks after Elena started at Second Chance. Marcus was making breakfast when his phone lit up with a number he'd blocked twice already. Victor Kane. He answered out of curiosity more than anything else. Mr. Cole, last chance. Kane's voice had lost its practiced smoothness, taken on an edge that suggested desperation. 500,000 cash. Transferred today if you agree to meet with my legal team tomorrow. I already told you no. Your daughter's oxygen saturation is dropping. I know because I know the name of her cardiologist and I know she's on the cancellation list for an emergency echo. Kane paused for effect. I also know you have 18 days before you're evicted and your unemployment runs out in 6 weeks. So let's skip the part where you pretend pride is worth more than your child's survival. Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. You've been watching my family. I've been doing my homework. And here's what I learned. Hartwell is using your algorithm to systematically underreport revenue to minority-owned vendors. They've stolen approximately $40 million over 3 years from businesses that can't afford legal representation. Your testimony could end that, could force restitution, could actually help people. Then you don't need me to lie. You just need me to explain what I built. I need you to testify that the algorithm was designed to hide discrepancies, that you knew it could be manipulated, that Hartwell instructed you to build those capabilities in. But they didn't. I built a tracking system. What they did with it after I left isn't my responsibility. Legally it is. You signed an intellectual property agreement. Anything you created belongs to them, and any malicious use can be traced back to the creator. Kane's voice went soft, almost gentle. They're going to blame you anyway, Marcus. When this lawsuit goes public, Hartwell's lawyers will paint you as the architect of their fraud. You'll be unemployable. Your name will be synonymous with corporate theft, unless you testify for me first and we establish that you were a whistleblower, not a co-conspirator. Marcus felt the trap closing, felt the walls narrowing to a choice between poverty and perjury, between protecting his reputation and protecting his soul. I need to think about it. You have until tomorrow morning. 9 a.m., my office. Come alone. Kane ended the call. Marcus set the phone down with hands that wanted to shake. Across the kitchen, Elena was pouring coffee, pretending she hadn't heard every word. How much of that did you catch? Enough. Elena handed him a mug. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. The kids thundered downstairs before he could say more. Daniel grabbed breakfast and disappeared. Jacob complained about a book report he'd forgotten. Noah silently collected his lunch. Tommy spilled juice and cried about it. Lily moved slowly, her lips carrying a faint blue tinge that Marcus had started seeing more frequently. After the bus left, Elena took Lily's vitals. Oxygen sat at 91%, pulse elevated, slight crackle in her lungs that suggested fluid buildup. We need to get her in sooner. Elena's professional mask slipped. This isn't stable anymore. The cardiologist can't see her for 3 more weeks unless someone cancels. Marcus ran his hands through his hair. And the emergency room will stabilize her and send us home with a bill I can't pay and no real solution. What if Kane's right? What if testifying could actually help people? Not if I have to lie to do it. Marcus met her eyes. I won't build a good outcome on a foundation of dishonesty. It never holds, even if it means Lily suffers, especially then, because if I teach her that lying is acceptable when the stakes are high enough, what am I teaching her about truth? Elena looked away. Sometimes I think your integrity is going to kill you. Maybe, but I'll die honest. The rest of the day crawled. Marcus applied for 7 jobs he wouldn't get, called 3 references who didn't call back, stared at the eviction notice until the words blurred. Elena came home from work with groceries she'd paid for with her first paycheck, refused to let Marcus reimburse her, made dinner while he helped kids with homework and tried not to think about Kane's deadline. That night, after everyone was asleep, Marcus found himself on the back porch again. Elena joined him without asking, carrying 2 beers from the fridge. Thought you might need this. She handed him one. They drank in silence for a while, Atlanta's night sounds filling the space between them. Sirens in the distance, neighbors arguing through thin walls, the highway's constant hum. Tell me about your wife. Elena's voice was quiet. What was she like? Marcus took a long pull from the bottle. Strong, stronger than me in most ways. She worked as a paralegal, loved terrible reality TV, sang off-key in the shower. Made the best peach cobbler you ever tasted. Terrible at parallel parking. She'd drive around the block 3 times looking for a pull-through spot. Elena smiled. Sounds stubborn. Unbelievably stubborn. Wouldn't admit she was sick until she collapsed at work and they rushed her to the ER. By then, the cancer was everywhere. Marcus stared at his beer. She spent 6 months dying and she never once complained. Never asked why her. Never got bitter or angry, just kept telling me to take care of the kids and make sure they knew they were loved. That must have been hard to watch. Hardest thing I've ever done. Marcus's throat went tight, watching someone you love disappear piece by piece while you're powerless to stop it. Watching your kids ask questions you can't answer. Watching the medical bills pile up, knowing every treatment you choose might bankrupt you, but not choosing isn't an option. Is that why you have such strong feelings about lying for money? Because you couldn't buy her more time no matter how much you spent? Marcus considered this. Maybe. Or maybe it's because she made me promise that her death wouldn't change who I was, that I wouldn't let grief or desperation turn me into someone who compromised my values just to survive. She said the greatest gift I could give our kids was showing them how to stay human when everything tried to make them less than that. But what Elena realized while staring at that room, she'd been in worse places, had slept in her car for 3 nights after her ex-husband threw her out, had spent a week on her mother's couch before Martha made it clear she was only welcome if she came with money attached. Elena was quiet for a long moment. My mother told me the night before the auction that my value was whatever someone would pay, that I should be grateful anyone wanted me at all given my defect. She said it like she was doing me a favor, like selling me was an act of love. Marcus felt rage kindle low and steady. That wasn't love. I know that now. But for a long time I believed her. Believed I was worth exactly $20,000 and not a penny more. Elena turned to look at him. Then you spent that money without even knowing my name. Spent it just to prove a point about dignity. And I've been trying to figure out ever since why anyone would do that. Because some things aren't for sale. Marcus held her gaze. Your humanity. Your right to choose your own path. Your dignity. Those things don't have price tags, and anyone who tries to put one on them is wrong. Elena's eyes filled. She blinked hard, didn't let the tears fall. I don't know how to tell you this without it sounding like something it's not. Her voice went rough. But you saved my life that day. Not because you gave me a place to stay or fed me or any of the practical things. You saved me because you showed me I still mattered. That I was still worth fighting for even when I'd stopped fighting for myself. Marcus reached over, covered her hand with his. You would have figured it out eventually. You're stronger than you think. I'm only strong now because you gave me the space to remember how. Elena turned her hand over, laced her fingers through his, and I need you to know that whatever you decide about Kane, I'm not going anywhere. If we end up in some tiny apartment with the kids sleeping in the living room, I'll be there. If you lose everything standing up for what's right, I'll help you rebuild, because that's what family does. The word hung between them. Family. Not housemates. Not employer and employee. Not rescuer and rescued. Family. Marcus squeezed her hand once and let go. I need to think about tomorrow. Think out loud if it helps. Kane wants me to testify that I knowingly built fraud into the algorithm, that Hartwell instructed me to create backdoors they could exploit. But that's not true. I built a clean system. What they did with it came later, so if you testify honestly, you can't give him what he wants. Right. But if I testify honestly, I confirm that the algorithm exists and how it works. That information alone might be enough for Kane to build his case. Then why does he need you to lie? Because he doesn't have the documentation to prove Hartwell manipulated the system. He has the results but not the methodology. If I say I built it corrupt from the start, he can claim the corruption was intentional and systemic. If I say I built it clean and they broke it, he has to prove they broke it. Elena nodded slowly. So telling the truth helps fewer people than lying would. In the short term, maybe. But long term, if I lie under oath and get caught, everything I say becomes suspect. Every person I could have helped loses their advocate because I destroyed my credibility. Marcus finished his beer. I'd rather tell a truth that helps a little than a lie that helps a lot and falls apart. What if you could do both? What if you testified honestly about what you built and let Kane's lawyers figure out how to use that information legally? That's what I should have done from the start instead of refusing to engage. Marcus felt something shift. I can give them the technical truth without speculation. Show them how the system works, let them subpoena Hartwell's records to prove misuse. It's slower, but it's clean, and it doesn't cost you your integrity or my ability to look my kids in the eye. Marcus stood. I need to call Kane back. Tell him I'll meet tomorrow, but only to discuss truthful testimony. He made the call before he could second-guess himself. Kane answered on the first ring. I'll meet you tomorrow. 9 a.m. like you said, but I'm only testifying to what I actually know. No speculation, no assumptions, no convenient fictions. Take it or leave it. Kane was silent for 3 seconds. That's not enough. Then find another witness. I'm done being asked to compromise. Marcus ended the call. Elena was watching him with something that looked like pride. That took guts. Or stupidity. We'll find out which. Friday morning, Marcus dressed in the same khakis and button-down he'd worn to sign his severance papers. Elena made him breakfast. The kids sensed something important was happening and behaved accordingly, even Daniel offering a quiet good luck before leaving for school. Victor Kane's office occupied the 20th floor of a glass tower in Buckhead, all chrome and leather and abstract art that cost more than Marcus would earn in a year. The receptionist led him to a conference room where Kane waited with 2 lawyers and a stenographer. Mr. Cole, thank you for coming. Kane gestured to a chair. I've reconsidered your position. We're prepared to accept truthful testimony in exchange for expert witness fees. $50,000 for your time and expertise. Marcus sat. I don't want your money. I just want this done right. Everyone wants money, Mr. Cole. It's just a question of how much and for what. I want my daughter to grow up knowing her father chose honesty over convenience. That's worth more than any check you could write. The lawyers exchanged glances. Kane leaned back, studying Marcus like he was a puzzle with missing pieces. You're an interesting man. Most people in your situation would have jumped at $500,000. You turned it down twice. Now you're turning down $50,000. Either you're the most principled person I've ever met or the most foolish. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Marcus folded his hands on the table. Are we doing this or not? They spent 4 hours going through the algorithm's architecture. Marcus explained the tracking system, the data inputs, the reporting mechanisms, showed them how the code was designed to flag discrepancies, not hide them. Walked them through the logic trees and conditional statements that made manipulation possible but not intended. The lawyers took notes, asked questions, circled back to key points. Can you confirm that this system as designed could be modified to underreport revenue without triggering internal alerts? If someone with admin access changed the threshold parameters, yes. Marcus kept his answers precise, but that would require deliberate action. The default settings flag anything over a 2% variance. And who had admin access? When I left, it was me and 2 executives in finance. But I can't speak to what permissions were granted after my termination. The questioning continued. By noon, Marcus's throat was dry and his head ached, but he'd given them everything he knew without once crossing into speculation or exaggeration. When the stenographer finally stopped typing, Kane stood and extended his hand. That was helpful, Mr. Cole. More helpful than you probably realize. We'll be in touch if we need clarification. Marcus shook his hand. I meant what I said about the money. I don't want compensation. Consider it a consulting fee. Kane smiled. You can refuse, but I'm sending the check anyway. What you do with it is your business. Marcus left the building with the strange sensation of having done something right without knowing if it would matter. His phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Lily's school called. She's in the nurse's office, breathing trouble. I'm leaving work now to get her. Marcus's chest went tight. He was 20 minutes from the school in traffic. Elena would get there in 10. He texted back, "Take her straight to the ER if it's bad. I'm on my way." He ran 3 red lights getting to children's health care, found Elena in the emergency waiting room with Lily curled in her lap, oxygen mask over the little girl's face, her skin carrying that bluish tint that meant her heart was failing to compensate. What happened? Marcus knelt beside them. Collapsed during PE. The school nurse said her oxygen was at 85%. Elena's voice was steady, but her hands shook. They're taking her back for an echo and chest x-ray. Cardiology is on call. Marcus gathered Lily into his arms. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused behind the mask. Daddy. Her voice was barely audible. Am I dying? No, baby girl, you're just sick. We're going to fix it. Lily's hand found his shirt, gripped weak but determined. Don't let me go, never, I promise. They took her back 15 minutes later. Marcus and Elena sat in the waiting room with terrible magazines and worse coffee, while doctors ran tests and made decisions about his daughter's life without consulting him. An hour passed. 2. Finally, a cardiologist emerged, young woman with kind eyes and a tablet full of bad news. Mr. Cole, I'm Dr. Patel. Lily's in stable condition for now, but the echo shows significant deterioration. The ventricular septal defect has enlarged and there's moderate to severe regurgitation. She needs surgery within the next 2 weeks or we're looking at heart failure. Marcus felt the floor drop. 2 weeks. How much? The surgery itself is around $250,000, plus hospital stay, anesthesia, post-op monitoring. Total cost will be close to $300,000. Dr. Patel softened her voice. I understand your insurance situation. We have payment plans and there are charitable foundations that help with pediatric cardiac cases. How long do those applications take? 6 to 8 weeks typically. We don't have 6 weeks. Marcus looked at Elena, at the woman who'd walked into his life 3 weeks ago and somehow become essential. What do I do? You get her stable and buy yourself time to find the money. Dr. Patel made notes on her tablet. We're admitting her overnight for observation. If she remains stable, we can send her home tomorrow with oxygen support and strict activity restrictions. But Mr. Cole, I need to be clear. 2 weeks is not negotiable. After that, the damage becomes irreversible. They admitted Lily to the pediatric cardiology ward. Marcus called Daniel from the hospital room, explained the situation in broad strokes. Listened to his oldest son's voice crack with fear he was trying to hide. Arranged for the younger kids to stay with a neighbor overnight. Settled into the chair beside Lily's bed while Elena took the small couch under the window. Lily slept fitfully, monitors beeping, oxygen hissing, her small chest rising and falling with effort. Marcus watched her breathe and did math that never worked. 300,000, his unemployment was 800 a week. Elena made 600, rent would be 900 once they found a place, groceries, utilities, gas, the minimum payments on credit cards he'd maxed during Elena's treatment. Even if they starved themselves and lived in their car, they couldn't save 300,000 in 2 weeks. His phone buzzed. An email notification. Subject line, wire transfer confirmation. He opened it with dread, already knowing what he'd find. $50,000 deposited to his account from Kane Enterprises. The consulting fee he'd refused. Elena stirred on the couch. What's wrong? Kane paid me anyway. 50,000. Marcus showed her the email. I told him not to. So give it back. I can't. Lily needs surgery that costs 300,000 and I have 50. If I return it on principle, I'm choosing my pride over her life. Elena sat up, came to stand beside his chair. But if I keep it, I'm accepting money I explicitly refused. I'm letting Kane turn my testimony into a transaction. Did you lie to Kane's lawyers today? No. I told them exactly what I knew, nothing more. Then the money isn't payment for perjury. It's payment for expertise. Elena crouched beside him. Marcus, you're allowed to accept compensation for your time. You're allowed to use resources that come to you legitimately. This isn't the same as the 500,000 bribe. This is an expert witness fee for testimony you gave honestly. It feels like a compromise. It's a tool. What you do with it determines whether it's a compromise or a blessing. Marcus looked at Lily, at his daughter fighting for every breath because her heart was broken in ways surgery could fix but poverty couldn't access. Looked at Elena, at the woman who'd been sold for $20,000 and was trying to convince him that $50,000 wasn't blood money. If I keep it, I'm still $250,000 short. Then we find the rest. But we do it without you destroying yourself over accepting help. Elena's hand covered his. You taught me that dignity doesn't mean refusing assistance. It means accepting it with grace and using it to build something better. So take the money. Pay for what you can. Let me help with the rest and we'll figure out the gap together. Marcus closed his eyes, felt the weight of decisions made and consequences coming. Felt the terrible mathematics of a system that made healthcare a luxury and put price tags on children's lives. Felt Elena's hand steady and warm and real. Okay. His voice came out rough. Okay, I'll keep it. They spent the night in the hospital room taking shifts, one sleeping while the other watched Lily's monitors. Around 3 a.m., Marcus woke to find Elena standing at the window, shoulders rigid, staring out at Atlanta's sleeping skyline. Can't sleep, he kept his voice low. Keep thinking about what Dr. Patel said. 2 weeks. Elena didn't turn around. What happens if we can't find the money in time? We find it. We have to. But what if we don't? What if we try everything and it's not enough? What if Lily dies because the world decided her life is worth less than $300,000? Marcus came to stand beside her. Then I'll have to live with that. Live with knowing I did everything I could and it wasn't enough. Live with looking my other kids in the eye and explaining why their sister is gone. Live with the fact that I chose principles over pragmatism and maybe that choice killed her. The words hung between them, brutal and honest. Would you change your mind? Elena's voice went hard. If you could go back to Kane's office and lie, give him the testimony he wanted, take the $500,000. Would you do it? I don't know. Marcus pressed his forehead against the cool glass. I want to say no. Want to believe that integrity matters more than outcomes, but looking at her right now, hooked up to machines because her heart can't do its job, I don't know if I'm strong enough to choose truth over saving her. What if it's not about strength? What if it's about trust? Trust in what? Trust that doing the right thing creates ripples you can't see yet. Trust that honesty builds foundations lies can't. Trust that your kids need you to be someone they can believe in more than they need you to be someone who wins by cheating. Marcus looked at her. When did you get so wise? When you showed me what wisdom looks like. Elena finally met his eyes. You saved me by refusing to compromise your values, even when it cost you everything, even when it looked like the stupidest decision anyone could make. You saved me because you proved that some people still choose character over convenience, and that gave me permission to start choosing it too. What if I'm wrong? What if all my principles are just dressed up pride and I'm too stubborn to admit it? Then you're wrong with intention and integrity. That's worth something. Lily stirred in the bed behind them, whimpered softly. Elena went to her immediately, adjusted the oxygen mask, checked the monitors, hummed something low and soothing until the little girl settled. Marcus watched her move with practiced competence. Watched her care for a child who wasn't hers with the tenderness of someone who'd decided love was a choice you made rather than a feeling that chose you. When Elena came back to the window, her expression had shifted. Determined now, edges sharp. I have an idea, but you're not going to like it. Try me. My ex-husband's family has money. Old money, the kind that buys politicians and builds hospital wings. They wanted grandchildren and I couldn't give them any, so they discarded me. But if I went to them, explained Lily's situation, appealed to their sense of legacy and reputation, they might help. Just to look generous. just to prove they're better than the woman who couldn't carry on their bloodline. Marcus felt something settle in his stomach. No, it's 300,000, Marcus. It's Lily's life. At what cost? You going back to people who hurt you, begging for scraps, giving them power over you again? They don't have power unless I give it to them. Elena's voice stayed steady. And I'm not the same person they threw away. I'm stronger now. I have a job, a family, a life they can't touch. I can walk into their mansion and ask for help and walk out again without it destroying me. Because I know my worth now, and it's not tied to what they think of me. Elena, this isn't your burden to carry. Yes, it is. Because Lily calls me Mama, and that means her life is my responsibility too. Because you gave me everything when I had nothing, and I refuse to watch you lose your daughter because you're too proud to accept my help. Elena grabbed his hands. Let me do this. Let me be someone who fights for the people she loves. Let me prove I'm worth the 20,000 you spent. You're worth 1,000 times that, and you don't have to prove anything. Then let me do it anyway, not for proof, or for love. Marcus looked at this woman who'd been sold 3 weeks ago and was now offering to walk back into the fire that had burned her, offering to sacrifice her peace for his daughter's survival. Looked at Lily sleeping with machines breathing for her. Looked at the future narrowing to a binary choice, swallow pride or bury a child. If you do this and they hurt you again, I'll never forgive myself. Then don't forgive yourself. Just let Lily live. The words hit like fists. Marcus felt his carefully constructed principles crack, felt the weight of being a father override the weight of being principled, felt the terrible mathematics of loving someone more than you love being right. Okay. His voice barely worked. Okay, do it, but I'm going with you. No, this has to be me alone. They need to see I'm asking on my own behalf, not being manipulated by you. Elena squeezed his hands once and let go. Trust me to handle this. Saturday morning, Elena borrowed Marcus's car and drove to Roswell, to the gated community where her ex-husband's parents lived in a house that looked like a museum. She sat in the driveway for 5 minutes, gathering courage, watching sprinklers water grass that didn't need it, seeing her reflection in the rearview mirror and barely recognizing the woman staring back. She rang the doorbell. A housekeeper answered, recognized Elena, started to close the door. Elena put her foot in the gap. I need to see Mrs. Whitmore. It's urgent. She doesn't want to see you. Tell her I'm here to discuss a child's life. Medical emergency. If she sends me away, I'll make sure everyone at the country club knows she let a 6-year-old die to avoid a conversation. The housekeeper's expression flickered. Wait here. Elena stood on the porch of a house she'd visited countless times during her marriage. Stood where she'd been welcomed and later rejected. Stood in the space between who she'd been and who she was becoming. The door opened again. Catherine Whitmore filled the frame, 70 years old and sharp as broken glass, dressed like she was going to lunch at the Ritz even though it was 9 a.m. on a Saturday. You have 5 minutes. Catherine didn't invite her inside. Elena stayed on the porch. A little girl I care for needs heart surgery. $300,000. Her family can't afford it, and the charitable foundations take too long. Without surgery in the next 2 weeks, she'll die. And you're here because? Because you have the money and I'm asking you to give it. Catherine's laugh was short and bitter. The audacity. You walk out of my son's life after failing your only purpose, get sold like chattel by your own mother, and now you show up begging for money. Why would I help you? Not me. Lily, a 6-year-old girl who never hurt anyone, who draws pictures of her family and calls me Mama even though I didn't give birth to her. Who deserves to live regardless of whether you think I deserve anything. My son is remarried now. His new wife is pregnant. We'll have our grandchildren soon. Real grandchildren, not some stranger's broken child. Elena felt fury rise sharp and clean. Your grandchildren will grow up in a world where their grandmother let a little girl die out of spite, where legacy meant money hoarded and compassion denied, where being right mattered more than being kind. Is that what you want them to learn? Catherine's eyes narrowed. You're different. Harder. I'm done being soft enough for people to walk over. Elena held her gaze. I'm asking one time. 300,000. I'll sign whatever agreement you want saying I'll never contact your family again. Never speak your name, never claim any connection. But help this child, not for me. For who you want to be when you look in the mirror. And if I refuse, then I walk away knowing I tried everything, and you walk away knowing you chose cruelty when kindness was an option. Catherine studied her for a long moment. Behind her in the house, sounds of Saturday morning routine, coffee brewing and news playing, and a life that had moved on without Elena in it. The child, is she yours? In every way that matters except biology. And the father, this family you've attached yourself to? Better than anything I had here, better than anything you offered. They chose me without conditions, and I choose them back. Catherine's expression shifted, something complex moving behind her eyes. Regret, maybe, or recognition, or just the cold calculus of a woman who'd spent 70 years building reputation and wasn't about to let it crack now. I'll make you a deal. I pay for the surgery, all of it, no strings except one. You bring the child here. Let me meet her. Let me see what you're willing to debase yourself for. Elena's stomach turned. You want to inspect her? Make sure she's worthy of your charity? I want to see if you've learned to love something more than your own survival. If you have, then maybe you're worth saving after all. It was a trap. Had to be. Some way to humiliate Elena further, to prove that asking for help was just another form of prostitution. But Lily's face flashed in Elena's mind. Blue-tinged lips and labored breathing, and monitors beeping their warnings. Fine. When? Tomorrow. 2 p.m. Bring the child and the father if you must. But Elena, understand this. If you're lying to me, if this is some scheme to extract money under false pretenses, I will destroy you in ways that make your mother's auction look merciful. I'm not lying. Elena turned to leave. One more thing. Catherine's voice stopped her. Why didn't you fight the divorce? You could have made it difficult, expensive, could have claimed abandonment or abuse or any number of things. Why did you just let it happen? Because I was tired of fighting for someone who didn't want me. Because I'd rather be alone than tolerated. Because your son taught me that love isn't something you negotiate or earn or perform your way into. It's something freely given, or it's nothing at all. Elena walked back to the car without waiting for a response. Sat in the driver's seat with shaking hands and the taste of bile in her throat. She'd done it. Walked back into the past and made a deal with someone who'd hurt her. Traded her pride for a child's future. Marcus was going to hate this. Hate that she'd subjected herself to Catherine's judgment. Hate that Lily had to be paraded like proof of concept. Hate that they had to accept charity wrapped in conditions. But Lily would live. That was all that mattered. She drove back to the hospital and found Marcus in Lily's room. The little girl awake and eating breakfast, color slightly better after a night on oxygen. Elena pulled him into the hallway. I got the money. Marcus stared. What? Catherine Whitmore will pay for the surgery. All of it. But she wants to meet Lily first, tomorrow at 2. Why? To make sure I'm not lying. To see what I'm fighting for, to hold power over me one more time before she writes the check. Marcus's jaw went tight. We don't need her money that badly. Yes, we do. Marcus, look at your daughter. Look at her and tell me your pride is worth more than her heartbeat. That's not fair. None of this is fair, but it's what we have. Elena kept her voice low. I can handle Catherine. I've handled worse. What I can't handle is watching Lily die because we were too proud to accept help on someone else's terms. What are the terms? We bring Lily tomorrow. Let Catherine meet her. Probably answer questions, maybe face some judgment about our situation. Then she pays and we never contact her family again. And you're okay with that? I'll be okay with whatever it takes to save that little girl. Elena glanced through the window at Lily. The question is whether you will be. Marcus looked at his daughter, at the oxygen mask and the monitors and the too pale skin. Looked at Elena, at the woman who'd walked back into trauma for his family. Looked at the choice laid bare, principle or survival, dignity or desperation. Okay. His voice was hollow. Tomorrow at 2. They took Lily home that afternoon with a portable oxygen concentrator and strict orders to keep her calm and rested. The younger boys were subdued when they saw her, scared by the medical equipment, confused by the tension thrumming through the house. Daniel helped Elena set up the oxygen in Lily's room, silent but present, his anger at the world temporarily set aside in the face of his sister's fragility. That night, Marcus lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to Lily's oxygen machine hiss and click. Elena was in the room next door, close enough that he could hear her moving around, couldn't hear her sleeping. He got up at 2 a.m. and found her in the kitchen making tea. Can't sleep either? He poured himself a cup. Keep thinking about tomorrow, what Catherine might say. How to protect Lily from her judgment. Elena wrapped her hands around the mug. I shouldn't have agreed to this, shouldn't have put her in this position. You did what needed doing, did I? Or did I just prove Catherine was right about me? That I'd do anything, compromise anything, if the price was high enough? Marcus sat across from her. 3 weeks ago, someone told you that your value was whatever people would pay. You believed them. But here's what I believe. Your value is in what you're willing to sacrifice for people you love. And you just sacrificed your peace, maybe your sense of safety. All to save a child who isn't even biologically yours. That's not weakness, that's the strongest thing I've ever seen anyone do. Elena's eyes filled. What if she's cruel to Lily? What if she says something that hurts her? Then we leave. And we find another way. But Elena, we're doing this together. You're not facing Catherine alone anymore. I'll be right there, and if she crosses a line, I'll carry Lily out of that house myself. Promise? Promise. Sunday arrived with the weight of reckoning. They dressed Lily in her favorite purple dress, the one Elena had bought her 2 birthdays ago, explained where they were going in simple terms. A nice lady who might help pay for her surgery wanted to meet her. Lily accepted this with the calm of a 6-year-old who'd learned that adults made decisions she couldn't control. The drive to Roswell took 30 minutes. Marcus parked in the circular driveway and they sat for a moment, gathering courage. Lily reached forward from her booster seat and touched Elena's shoulder. Are you scared? A little bit, sweetheart. Why? Because you're breathing funny, like me when my heart's being loud. Elena took Lily's small hand. I'm scared because I want this lady to like us, want her to help us, but sometimes when we want things very much, we get nervous. What if she doesn't like us? Then we tried our best, and that's what matters. They walked to the door, Marcus carrying the oxygen concentrator, Elena holding Lily's hand. Catherine answered before they could knock, as if she'd been watching from the window. Her gaze swept over them, clinical and assessing. Come in. The interior was exactly as Elena remembered. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, art on the walls worth more than most people earned in a decade. Catherine led them to a sitting room that looked like a catalog photo shoot, everything precisely placed and coldly beautiful. Sit. Catherine gestured to a white sofa that seemed designed to show stains. They sat. Lily between Marcus and Elena, small hands folded in her lap, oxygen tubes trailing from her nose to the concentrator at Marcus's feet. Catherine remained standing. So you're Lily? Yes, ma'am. Lily's voice was soft but clear. I'm told you need heart surgery. Yes, ma'am. My heart has a hole in it and it makes me tired. And these people, they take care of you? Lily looked at Marcus, then at Elena. My daddy takes care of me. And Mama Elena helps, and my brothers help too, even though they're annoying sometimes. Catherine's eyebrow lifted. Mama Elena, not stepmother or guardian or caretaker. Just Mama. She's my Mama. Lily said it with the certainty of someone stating absolute fact. She reads me stories and gives me my medicine and helps me breathe when it's hard. That's what mamas do. And your real mother? Where is she? In heaven with Jesus. But that's okay because Mama Elena loves me anyway. Catherine's expression flickered. She turned to Elena. You've taught her to call you that. I've taught her nothing. Elena kept her voice level. She chose the name herself and I didn't correct her because it felt like the truth. The truth is you're playing house with another woman's family. The truth is I'm caring for children who needed someone and building a life that honors both their past and their future. Elena met Catherine's eyes. Their mother died loving them and I'm not trying to erase that. I'm just trying to add to it. Catherine moved to a chair across from them, sat with perfect posture. Tell me about the surgery. Details. Marcus explained, kept it medical and precise. Ventricular septal defect, regurgitation, timeline, risks, recovery. Catherine listened without interrupting, her face revealing nothing. How much of the 300,000 can you cover yourself? 50,000, plus whatever Elena and I can save in the next 2 weeks, maybe another 5,000 if we're lucky. Marcus's jaw worked. The rest is beyond our reach without help. And if I refuse? If I decide your situation isn't my concern? Marcus looked at Lily, at his daughter's too pale face and labored breathing. Then I'll keep looking, keep asking, keep trying until the 2 weeks are up and she either gets surgery or she doesn't. But I won't stop fighting for her. That's not something I know how to do. Even if fighting means losing, especially then. Because she needs to see that I don't give up on people I love even when the odds are impossible. Catherine's gaze shifted to Elena. And you? What are you willing to lose? Everything I've rebuilt in the last 3 weeks. My peace of mind, my sense of safety, the distance I've put between myself and this house. Elena's voice stayed steady. I'll lose all of it if that's what saving Lily requires because she's mine in every way that counts and you don't abandon your children when things get hard. Something shifted in Catherine's expression. She stood, walked to a desk in the corner, returned with a checkbook and a pen. 300,000, she began writing. It covers surgery, hospital stay, post-op care, and complications if they arise. Consider it a gift to the child, not to you. She tore out the check and held it toward Elena. Elena reached for it, but Catherine didn't let go. Understand something. I'm doing this because that little girl reminds me of who I used to be before I learned that love was a transaction, before I started measuring worth in bloodlines and bank accounts, before I forgot that the point of having money is being able to use it for something that matters. Catherine released the check. Elena took it with shaking hands. You're better than my son deserved. Catherine's voice went soft. Better than I deserve too. I'm sorry for what we put you through. Sorry for making you believe you were broken when you were just human. Elena couldn't speak, just nodded once, sharp and quick. Catherine turned to Lily. You take care of your mama, and you let her take care of you. That's how families work, real families, the ones you choose. I will. Lily smiled, gap-toothed and genuine. Thank you for helping me not die. Catherine's composure cracked for just a second. Then she nodded and stood. You should go schedule the surgery. The sooner the better. They left the house in silence, climbed into the car with $300,000 in Elena's trembling hands. Marcus started the engine but didn't drive, just sat gripping the steering wheel while Elena stared at the check. I can't believe that just happened. Elena's voice shook. Believe it. Marcus reached over, covered her hand with his. You just saved our daughter's life. Our daughter. The words hung between them, truth finally spoken out loud. Lily piped up from the back seat. Can we get ice cream now? They laughed, sudden and cathartic, the tension breaking like fever. Marcus drove to the nearest ice cream shop and bought 3 cones they couldn't afford and didn't need. Sat in the parking lot eating them while Lily chattered about flavors in Catherine's fancy house and whether her heart would work better after surgery. When they got home, Daniel was waiting on the porch. His face was pale, jaw tight. "What's wrong?" Marcus's stomach dropped. "Nothing's wrong." Daniel stood up. "Elena's boss called. Said there's an emergency board meeting tomorrow at Second Chance and she needs to be there. Wouldn't say why." Elena pulled out her phone. 7 missed calls from Amanda Hayes, her supervisor. 3 voicemails. She listened to the first one, face going carefully blank. "What is it?" Marcus touched her arm. "Someone filed a complaint about my hiring. Said my background check was incomplete, that I misrepresented my employment history, that I'm not qualified for the position." Elena's hands clenched. "They're reviewing my file tomorrow morning. If they find any discrepancies, I'm fired effective immediately." Who filed the complaint? The voicemail didn't say, but Elena knew with the certainty of someone who'd been hunted before. Martha. Her mother had found out where she worked and was trying to destroy the one thing Elena had built for herself. Marcus saw it in her face. "Your mother?" "Who else?" Elena's voice went flat. "She can't control me anymore, so she's trying to take away my independence. Trying to prove I'm still worthless without her." "You're not worthless, and we're not letting her win." Marcus pulled her close. "Tomorrow we go to that meeting together and we show them exactly who you are. Truth. No hiding. No shame, just the facts." But here's what Elena didn't say out loud. She had nowhere else to go. Her mother refused to take her back without the money. Her ex-husband had restraining orders against her. The shelter was full. If Marcus told her to leave, she'd be sleeping in her car. But she'd rather die than let this 13-year-old boy see her fear. That night they prepared. Marcus helped Elena organize documents, her nursing degree, character references from Second Chance clients she'd helped, testimony from Marcus about her care for Lily. They built a defense against accusations they hadn't seen yet, armed themselves with truth because it was the only weapon they had. Around midnight, Elena stood at the window again, that same rigid posture Marcus had seen in the hospital. He joined her. "What are you thinking? That I'm tired of fighting? Tired of having to prove I deserve basic dignity? Tired of people trying to tear down what little I've managed to build?" Elena's voice cracked. "I just want to exist without having to justify my existence every single day." Marcus turned her to face him. "Then stop fighting alone. Let me carry some of this. Let us be a family that stands together instead of individuals barely holding on." Elena looked up at him, tears finally falling. "I don't know how to do that. Don't know how to trust that you won't leave when things get too hard." "I'm not going anywhere." Marcus cupped her face in his hands. "Not when you're struggling. Not when Martha comes after you. Not when the world tries to convince you you're not enough. I'm staying and we're fighting this together. Say it again." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm not going anywhere. Again. I choose you, Elena. I choose this family. I choose us." She kissed him then, sudden and fierce and desperate. Marcus kissed back with 3 weeks of suppressed feelings pouring out. 3 weeks of watching her build herself from ashes. 3 weeks of falling for someone he hadn't meant to fall for. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "I love you." Elena said it like a confession. "I know it's too soon and too complicated and probably a terrible idea, but I love you. And I need you to know that before tomorrow potentially destroys everything." Marcus rested his forehead against hers. "It's not too soon. And I love you too. Have probably loved you since you stood on that auction block and refused to break." They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other in the dark while Atlanta slept and tomorrow waited with its threats and promises. Monday morning came too fast. They dressed in their best clothes, left the kids with a neighbor, drove to Second Chance Foundation in silence, heavy with dread. Amanda Hayes met them in the lobby, expression unreadable. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Cole. We appreciate your willingness to speak on Elena's behalf. The board is waiting." The conference room held 5 people. 3 board members Marcus didn't know, Amanda Hayes and Martha Brennan, sitting at the end of the table with a smile like poisoned honey. "Mrs. Brennan has brought to our attention some concerns about Ms. Elena Brennan's employment application." One of the board members, an older man in an expensive suit, gestured to a folder, specifically questions about her previous employment, her reasons for leaving her marriage, and her current living situation. Marcus felt Elena stiffen beside him. He reached under the table and took her hand. "I'm happy to address any concerns." Elena's voice didn't shake. "What specifically would you like to know?" Martha leaned forward. "Tell them where you're living, dear. Tell them about the man who bought you at auction and how you've been playing house with his children. Tell them about the arrangement you have. Have you ever walked into a room where everyone had more power, more money, and more reasons to destroy you than to listen? That's what Elena did, and the only weapon she had was the truth.